Tom Screen here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Carlos Davidovich. Carlos, welcome.
Thanks a lot for your invitation, Thomas. I'm delighted to be here.
It is very much my pleasure. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay, just let's say in a nutshell, born and raised in Argentina, and as a professional medical doctor, MD, and I was working also in business, in pharmaceutical business, in one specific niche that was biotechnology, that we used to call it the science fiction of pharma, and it still is, by the way. Around 2000, moved to Europe, and I had to reinvent it myself, and I ended working in leadership development, so helping people in organizations regarding leadership and, let's say, human behavior, because I have also a background in psychology, and giving lectures, workshops, and doing executive coaching. So I work a lot one-on-one or teams regarding that. 2013, I was invited to work and live in Canada. So I will never die with a what if. So I tried, and I went to Toronto, and I spent 7 years of my life there. And the pandemic brought me back to Europe, and now I'm based in Madrid, in Spain. So more or less in a nutshell, that's the story.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to ask you about. As we discussed before, I had a look at the TEDx talk, which I will link in the description. And you have I don't know whether you'd call it a specialty in knowing about the brain. How did that come about?
So in one moment, that was already, I don't know, maybe close to 15 or 20 years ago, I heard about someone that was connecting how the brain works with organization, with human behavior, and applied to organizations. In that moment, I figured out that I was bilingual in business and medicine, so I was able to connect and to bridge those two worlds. So I found it fascinating. So what I do, I call it neuro management, because there's no other word so far, is to apply the latest practical tips from neuroscience, how the brain works, in organizations and business. And again, it's about human behavior, how people connect with each other. Today, we have a lot of more information than before, so we can explain better how our brain works, or we call it brain. We can talk about the mind, it's a different story. We can go there later. And that helps a lot to people that needs to rationalize, and I respect that, and to understand rationally why people react in certain way. And that is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it easier to people to understand themselves and people around them based on neuroscience.
Thank you for that. And I find the area fascinating. So I got loads of questions. But the first one I always tend to ask about when people have expertise in the area of the brain is, based on what you have learned, how has it changed you in terms of the actions that you take on a day-to-day basis, given that the fact that you know about what's going on up there?
That is a great question, Thomas. Fantastic question. I tell you, I like to say it in this way. Knowing more about this stuff is to have a new type of glasses. So you start seeing and reading and understanding behavior in a different way. When in my coaching practice, of course, people refer about a lot of issues, not necessarily problems or maybe the development, but I always read between the lines. That is my work, because I know what is behind. So when they say they are very rational people, and I know they are not, I then try to highlight and to transmit the importance of our emotions. And I will start by the end, but Thomas, already we are emotional beings with a brand new rational software that still, even though gave us such a huge, possibilities, still we don't trust. And trust in human behavior is essential in teams, in family, in couples, the concept of trust. And that relies in a different level in the brain. So then when I discuss, when I try to support my clients, I listen from a different state of mind. That is in the way that knowing more about the brain was changing the way I perceive, the way I listen, and also the way I can support and give some tips to my clients. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. And the funny thing about the TED Talk, that where you speak about the person who says, I am a rational person, is that it sounds very much like something that I would say. I would slightly rephrase it in the sense that I say I aspire to be a rational person. But what do you think, if someone is saying that, what do you think are the main misconceptions about stating that you are a person who is completely rational? What are the alarms that go off in your head around that?
The first one is I take it like a defense mechanism, because if I stick to the concept of rationality, makes me feel safer because it's something I can touch, I can grab, and mainly in those analytical personality, they need to see processes. If they don't see the processes, doesn't exist. But human brain doesn't work in that way. And that's the key point. What I try to transmit in a very, I would say, respectful way is definitely we need to lead our life or deal our life with rational thinking. Please don't get me wrong. But there is no way that rational thinking will not be influenced by our emotions. And the problem is that the word emotional has a very negative connotations in any language. We say it in a negative way. You're emotional. Means you cannot manage your emotion. You cannot manage yourself. That is not what I'm trying to say. Emotions, it's like, let's say, the cover of everything that happens in our life is the color that we give to our rational thinking. But based on that emotions is also the way that our rational thinking will develop. If I can understand what emotions are behind those rational thinking, I can make it better. In another word, if I can, and I can, if I want, to put myself in the side of it, let's call it positive emotions. Positive emotion is not about being happy all day, okay? It's a completely different topic. So happiness is not about being positive. Positive is an attitude. It's the way I see life, is the way I deal with life. It's a way to focus on solutions rather than problems. The happiness is a different animal, okay? Different territory. So what I'm trying to talk is about being positive in the way that will move you forward. If I can then establish in myself a basic state of positive emotions, I will use in a much better and productive way my rational mind. Make sense? Tell me if I'm explaining myself, please, if it's okay.
Perfect sense.
So what I'm trying to say is emotions could be negative, could be something that will take me or hold me back or not helping me moving forward. And then my rational thinking will follow that. So the rational brain is still, I mean, we don't know, it's limitless. We don't know how the limit of our rational brain. We don't know the limit of our brain in general, scientifically talking. But the possibility of rational brains are, again, endless. I mean, look at the technology, look at what we are doing. Look, I mean, I don't want to fall in the cliche of the chat GPT, but it's a product of the rational mind. So what I'm trying to say is, hey, we have an amazing tool, even though the way to use it in the right way, or let's say in a productive way, is determined by the emotion that is behind. So if I can, like the emotions will be like let's say the carrier, and the rational brain can take us really, really far. But if we can manage ourselves in what I call the internal team, those different characters that we have inside.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And it comes back to, I think, one of the 5 areas of the brain that you talk about. Do you mind just sharing a summary of what those are?
Please, I will. I love to do that. So it's a constructor based on scientific information, and in that moment, I had a kind of insight saying, "Hey, wait, we don't have one brain." So our body is a more complex system. And then let's talk about concrete things. We have a lot of neurons here. Let's call it the headquarters of the brain. The one is here. That through evolution, nature didn't replace, it was adding components. The instinctual part first, then the emotional part, now the rational part. Don't get me wrong, because today there are many people against the triune theory of the brain. I'm not saying that we can divide the brain on 3. That's not true. The brain is completely intertwined. But we have instinctual behaviors, we have emotional behaviors, we have rational behavior. So still it's easy to identify those components. One thing that I didn't study when I studied medicine is that we have neurons in our heart. So our heart also is connected with the upper brain and is interacting in a very curious way. It seems like the heart, and I don't want to go to the romantic side, but maybe in the future we will talk about that. But it seems that the heart can be a reservoir of memory, and definitely, no doubt, is connected with our emotions. The examples I like to do is, medically talking, anyone that goes through any kind of heart intervention or heart attack or something that will mobilize or connect with the heart, the incidence of psychological issues is higher after. Psychological or mental issues. So there is a connection there. Doesn't happen with any other organ in our body. And the 5th one is our gut. Now it's very popular to talk about the gut brain, it's everywhere. But we have a complete nerve system in our gut. And it's so powerful that is the responsible of producing serotonin, that is the substance connected with our mood. So that is one of the reasons, there are many more, that our digestive system is so connected with our emotional being. So, and that is something everyone understands, you're nervous, and then your stomach or your gut, it's not in the good shape, and people can have it in a more complicated setting, like certain diseases. But like our digestive system, there's no way will not react to an emotional impact. So gut, heart, and 3 here is what I call, metaphorically talking, the framework of the 5 brains.
Really interesting. And it reminds me of, that phrase of following your heart instead of your head.
Absolutely.
And my aspire to be rational, my aspiration to be rational, I would think in my mind that, well, the heart is just something that pumps blood around the body. But in actual fact, you've just provided a rebuttal for that. So that's very interesting.
And I tell you, Thomas, I'm very interested in, and I share with you because we talked before, I'm very interested in inner development and personal development. And connecting dots, but by myself, connecting dots about what all philosophers were saying and what we understand today. And I don't want to go deep on this rabbit hole. What I'm going to say is the first doctors, let's say, or the first philosophers, they thought that everything started in the heart. That was the heart, it was not the brain. And of course, science proved that this one is quite powerful. But maybe in the future, we will understand what they were saying 3,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. So there is something else that still we are not able to understand. That's for sure, many things. And mainly, what is what kind of play our heart has in our whole behavior. And I don't believe in chance. I don't believe in things that happen just because. I think that is causes, effect, and more complex things. And even though all we call the romantic things, I mean, people really can feel the pain in the body, in the area of the heart. There are many things. And okay, I didn't mention, but in many languages, we have saying that involves the heart as a reservoir of memory. Like, I know it by heart in English. I know it by heart. Well, what are you talking about? I know it by heart. Or in Spanish, remember, recordar, is going through the heart and bring information. So there is something there that is a fantastic, opportunity to search and to look and to understand better.
So I don't know why I'm asking this question, but I just like to get your thoughts on it, because there is such a thing these days as the heart transplant. Have you got any thoughts about, separate from, how it would operate physically, what that would do to someone who, changing their character maybe?
Well, definitely you have the information. That's why you asked this question. Between 20 and 25% of people receiving a new heart, they change personality 100%. And of course, that was very curious, very weird, very odd. And there was a group of researchers in the United States that were able to identify the donors. The new characteristics of the receptor were the characteristic of the donors. And that sounds very creepy. I take it, okay? I
was going to say amazing. That's what I was going to say.
I love it, Thomas. I think I use the word creepy as a shield, because people say, oh my God. But I need to tell you something personal, okay? I'm telling this story. I told this story many times, many years living in Canada. In two, and of course, how many people I can reach? Not so many. 1,000 maybe. Okay, 1,000 people. Not the big population. In two opportunities in the audience were somebody that told me my sister had exactly that situation. She went through cardiac transplantation, and now I cannot recognize her. She changed taste, the way sport activities. It's a different person. In two opportunities, one was the sister, the other one was the father. And I said, I tell you, I was like, oh my God, because I didn't have so close experience, So, and this is anecdotal, of course, it's not statistically proven anything, but for me, that means that it's more common than we think.
Fascinating.
It's fascinating.
And I don't know if you have any thoughts about this. I've asked this before, and I'm not sure I've got a clear answer on it, but you talked about the areas of the brain and also maybe the heart. My question is around being able to notice when that happens. So let's say you are getting particularly emotional, and that might be the reptilian brain. Do you have any thoughts or tactics around maybe noticing so that you can regulate your behavior better to know where your thoughts are coming from?
Another great question. Yesterday I'm coaching. I still coaching many bullies, to be honest. People that has this kind of reptilian attitude toward people, very bright people in top position, but still the reptilian brain is in control. And when I work with those people is to identify the trigger, because the first reaction is always, I don't know when I will be aggressive or violent with my people or my family, because you cannot separate both of them. So the consequences are in personal life and in working life. But in my experience, always we are able to identify a trigger, a moment that person knows that is coming.
Mm.
They don't think about it. At the moment I'm bringing this up, they start doing some kind of scanning, I say, hey, yeah, every time that happens, then I become very aggressive. So we have a plan. We build a plan. The plan is, because I know how the brain is not easy to change. Unless you really make the effort to make the change. Question number one, the pattern can be changed. The answer is yes, but you need to want to change it. It's a will thing. And what we do is, step number one, at the beginning, for sure, I tell this person, let's say ex-client, at the beginning, you will not be able to stop, but you will perceive the trigger. So step number one, say sorry as soon as you can, because that will come, but then apologize faster. That is creating a different loop inside. And what happened through time is that when they identify the trigger, I said, go away, go for a walk, stop reacting. Why they want to do it? Well, number one, because the consequences of being aggressive, they are very negative. But number two, what I sell to them in a positive way is, you are a control freak. Most of us, we are. And this is a way, your aggression is a way to keep the control, because nobody reacts to you, so you're in control. What about if you apply that power of being in control to yourself? And you will see these exponential results in the way your team will work with you, in the way your family will be with you, your wife, your kids. So let's apply the same energy in a different direction. And we talk a lot about there's no need for those aggressions. And I'm not talking about everybody is calm, we don't react. No. I mean, we have, our moods goes up and down, but not necessarily are peaks and valleys so pronounced that provoke this kind of negative connection. So I don't want to be too long on this, but we already have steps to follow. And you cannot imagine, Thomas, how powerful they feel at the moment they can control the system. They can control their, and then they start seeing is right away that the impact on others is more positive, and they can get even more from people if they treat them, let's say, in a normal human relationship connection. It takes time for the people around them to believe this change, because they are all the time waiting, okay, and any time will come again. So it's longer, the process. But at the moment you can establish this, definitely you can control. You need to identify the trigger. Always there is one trigger. In medicine, it's called the aura. When with certain diseases, when they go into epilepsy, for instance, there is something that will tell you it's coming. And in this kind of reaction and control reaction, there is also kind of aura, kind of trigger. So
is increased heartbeat an example of one of those?
That could be one. That could be one. Another person told me is he was feeling something in the stomach. At the moment I feel these symptoms in my stomach, I know I will react. That was another example. The heartbeat variability could be another one. So what I try is to use the power they have to explode in a different direction, in a more, let's say, positive way. And at the moment they see the results of the change on people's behavior towards them is like, I mean, people say, wow, now we can talk. now we really can discuss, we can talk. And that is very, I don't know if I'm responding your question, but the point is that the most difficult components of our internal team is the reptilian one, is the most difficult one. Not because it's fast, it's very fast. Not because always wants to win, so give us this kind of nice feeling of winning, and these people feel as a winner all the time. But the most complicated thing is the part of our brain, ourselves, that we trust the most. And again, I go back to the concept of trust. Because we know internally that civilization is alive because of survival reaction, and be able to survive. So we need to, like I said in the TED Talk, let's keep this reptilian brain as a first responder for emergencies, but we don't need it anymore for our daily life.
Yeah, you made a couple of interesting points, and I just wanted to highlight one of them, which is a lot of people like to, if they're in that leadership position, control as much as they can. And you highlight the fact that it sounds a lot like a bias in the sense that they are not noticing the fact that they're not controlling their own emotions. And you also provided a solution. So for those that do want to control it, if they notice that trigger that you mentioned, the solution is to kind of get away from the environment, say sorry as quickly as possible if it's necessary. And I think that's a really good answer. You did mention the fact that you coach a lot of bullies in your words. How do you feel about that?
Well, I didn't know how I became this kind of coach, but between you and me, Thomas, I love it. Those are people that they can take whatever you say because that's the reality. And there's no sugarcoating thing. They can take it. So at the moment, I'm not saying 100% of them can make the change. At the moment they can make the change, oh my God, you have a very powerful and kind personality. When they understand that helping is not what they are doing, exactly, and that another misunderstanding of these people, and they think that they are powerful because in the way they are, this kind of aggressive personality. No, they are powerful because of their skills, because they know a lot. So that's another change of mindset. You're not good, or you're not in your position, VP or whatever, or CEO, because you shout on people or you yell. No, it's not the reason. That is a negative side of you. It's because you know a lot, you're intelligent. So let's focus on your positive side. And then we can deal with the other one. I try to take out the importance of this kind of type of controlling others. So your question is, how do I feel? I feel those people very relaxed because, first of all, I need to be honest, I will never work for them. Never. I will die based on my personality. So I can't have as a boss somebody like this. But as a peer, they trust me. It's fantastic because they are very open. And the step number one, when I'm called to coach this kind of personality, is we need to identify motivation for a change. Without a real motivation, sometimes it's family. I remember one case that was nothing about the company. Was the CEO of a very manufacturing company, very bully, of course, and the board wants, okay, let's do something. Normally, let's be honest, normally the company wants to do something where there is a legal issue involved. If not, they don't care because this type of people, they bring results all the time. And in this case, I don't want to derail, okay? So help me with it. But in this case, his motivation was relationship with his daughter. Because his daughter didn't want to talk to him anymore because of his personality. So that was the motivation to make the change at work. I mean, in himself, that will impact the work. It was a personal issue. And we were talking a lot about his personal situation and family situation, because that was important for him. And I need to, even though I say it not in a funny way, I say, you need to convince me, what is your motivation for change, for a change? Because you were like this all your life. Why to change? And you were successful. And you think because you are like this, it's not true. But okay, convince me, and then we can work. So, and we go to all these places. I mean, one guy was going to be retired in 3 years. I don't want to be fired 3 years before I'm retired. This is not about money. It's about my personal, let's say, interest in life.
So did you help that person
sorry.
with his daughter?
So yeah, oh gosh, I don't want to go deep. It was a different language. I mean, the language was not English. And in one moment, we decided, because the daughter left the house, was living in another country. So we were writing letters together, how to communicate with the daughter and to say what's going on, what happened. He was apologizing. So he had to translate it to English for me because his language was other language. And finally, the daughter finally accepted because understood. Of course, it's her father in the end. but she was very tough. She was adult, no, a young adult, and was waiting for a change. And he was able to show that.
No, well, congratulations. It does make me wonder about if you've got any other sort of favorite case studies or examples of people that you've helped.
About around this or in general? About this you say?
You could do coaching or psychology. You know, what's something that sort of comes to you if you were to say, you know, what's your favorite example of someone that you've helped?
Okay. There was one guy, 30 years in the company, now was the CEO in charge of the business in one country, big country, in Canada, doesn't matter, because the company was not Canadian, was not from Canada. And the same situation, you know, a bully, and he was treating really, really badly people. It was a manufacturing company. So tell me, what do you do? 6 o'clock in the morning, he was walking in the place where they were making the product of manufacturing in the fabric, and just checking that everything was okay. At the moment he saw somebody doing something wrong, oh my God, it was terrible. And I was very curious. I say, sorry, do you have somebody in between you and them? I mean, there is somebody there because you're a CEO. Yeah, of course, I have the manager, blah, blah. And why they are not taking care of them and not you? And he said, well, he was not able to explain it. So we established a rule. The rule was, you will keep coming 6 o'clock in the morning to the manufacturing company, to the manufacturing area. And if you detect something wrong, shut up, you turn, go to the office and call your number 2. And he or she will deal with the situation. That was the deal. It took time, I tell you. But the interesting part, and that's what I want to share with you when you ask me this, I think, I don't remember, 3 months later or 4 months later, we were okay, checking that everything was okay, blah, 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 blah. And he said, Carlos, finally, I can sleep. Excuse me, what are you talking about? I didn't know about that. He didn't tell me. Yeah, I was not sleeping well for years. Now, with this dynamic, now I'm sleeping because he learned to delegate finally. But listen to it's interesting. He was like this because he felt responsible for everything in the factory. He thought, if I'm not solving this, we are in trouble. Not in an arrogant way, in a hyper-responsible way. And at the moment he was able to trust others and to start delegating properly, he started resting, relaxing, and sleeping. And for me was, wow, this is something I didn't think. I didn't know the truth. But for me it was interesting. It's fascinating. Because I tell you again, it's not people, well, some could be mean, but it's not because it was mean, because it was too much responsible in the wrong way, let's say. I don't know if that helped, but that was one story that came to my mind when you asked.
Well, it sounds like you've helped him individually a lot, and presumably that's a knock-on effect to the company then, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they have different interests, but okay, you need to know how to balance the interest of the board, the interest of the boss, the interest of them. But in the end, it's a better outcome, that's for sure, for everyone.
Thank you for that. I think it's always nice to hear the sort of individual examples, so I appreciate it. Just touching on coming back to the brain just for a moment, I always like to ask about, other than the ones that we've discussed, what would you say the biggest misconceptions are around the topic of the brain?
The biggest one is that we believe we are rational, pure rational beings. The decision-making process in the brain is physically located in the emotional brain, not in the rational brain. So we need to involve some kind of emotions. And people, the big misunderstanding is, I make rational decisions. No, you're not. And if we are aware of that, again, we can apply positive emotions to make better decisions. So let's be clear of this interaction inside of us. Rationality is the best tool we have, no doubt, but needs to be covered by positive emotions and with our instinct to let it there sleeping, let's say, until we really need them. Misunderstanding number one is this hyper focus on being rational and this kind of internal need, I'm rational, because that gives us, I already said it, a false feeling of control. And I say the false because none of us, another misunderstanding that we can control everything, forget it. Forget it. So if we can be more humble, I mean, in the right way, I mean, to understand that the topic is not about being in control of everything. It's being adaptable to what I need to be adaptable. Then what I need to develop is my capacity to understand how things are moving all the time. In my life, in the market, when there is about product, or in my team, things are in permanent change. The brain hates changes because brings uncertainty. But we know the truth. And the cliche, the only constant in life is change, said by Heraclitus or whatever. But we know it's a fact, but still we are in denial. If we can really talk to ourselves and to understand that this is a fact every single day, then we can walk our life in a completely different way, more in an awe state. I mean, like to observe, to see the changes, and to be prepared on how to adapt to those changes that we need to be adapted to. Make sense?
Makes sense. I did just have one follow-up on it, which is that person who says, I'm a very rational person, because it's like part of their identity, or they perceive it to be. What would you encourage them to say instead of that?
You remind me one anecdote. When people normally, or in a coaching practice, or they say, I'm a very rational, I'm a pure rational person, my response or joke is, oh gosh, what limited are you? Because you are not using a lot of other tools that you have. So the right way to understand the system is, I'm emotional. I have emotions. Let's put it, I have emotions, an instinct. I can identify when I am in this emotion, I can name it. To name emotion is a very powerful tool. And then I know what is the best one to leverage my rational brain, my rational part. Because I will not think in the same way if the emotion is not the right emotions. What I want is that they will understand the power of emotion without being in denial, because the word emotional sounds like a weakness, something too soft. Is the less soft things that we have in the brain, our emotions, because they are in charge of everything. So learn which one is the most powerful in you, because it's different to each of us, and learn how to deal with it. Not to repress, to deal with it, to accept it. And you will see how your rational brain will follow.
Yeah, I think I get what you mean. My interpretation of that is like, you're effective at using the various different parts of your brain rather than just using one of them. So,
exactly.
And yeah, highly agree.
You didn't talk about something normally comes always, because it's the famous saying of the gut feeling and the intuition. Because intuition, again, has a negative marketing in certain level, but there is no successful leader. There doesn't exist a successful leader in any organization that is not high in intuition. I work with one assessment that we test personalities, personal characteristics, behavioral traits. Intuition is one. And the person that created this assessment, and then we were searching all over the topic, let's say, they are not success in life if you don't understand the language of your intuition. And that is something, again, kind of scary for some people, except for top managers or executive in company. Never, absolutely never. That's my target in general. Never, some of them told me, I don't know what you're talking about. Never. Top and successful executive or people managing organizations, they say, I perfectly know, Carlos, what you're talking about. My team is saying, let's go there. And my gut said, no, let's go there. And then what I always try to explain for the rational mind and to accept it, our gut feeling is the best version of Google. It's an algorithm. So more experience you have, your intuition will work better because it has more information. It's a different way to connect dots. Again, I cannot see the process. Then analytical people will say, I don't believe in this. And definitely, I'm not saying that's always right. I'm saying it's another source of information. And you brought this to me in the way you say, hey, man, you have many tools. Don't leave some of them aside because maybe the response is there. And the combination of all these characteristics that we have as a human being are the one that will take us to a better place.
Well, thank you for that. I can 100% see how having you as a coach, as a type of leader, would be beneficial. So, and I feel like I've had like a bit of an educated talking to. So I appreciate the conversation. If someone wants to hire you, where do they go?
Okay, I have my website. I mean, www.carlosdavidovich.com, very easy. And if not, in LinkedIn, you put my name, and again, it's very easy to connect to me. I mean, I will not. I mean, the email is there, so it's easy, and even my phone number. And if you can call me, no problem at all. I mean, I'm sorry. I even though my last name, I'm Latino, so I mean, I'm very close. That
All right. Well,
had to learn to keep it in place when I deal with people all over the world. They are different cultures.
and do you have any closing thoughts for us today?
In the end, it's about, and I will go back to something that we talked before we started. In the end, it's about how you feel with yourself. In the end, it's about your personal development. That is the umbrella to all the rest. And what I try to be clear on is identify what is your purpose. Identify what is your purpose in life. Because never is a profession, a work, never is work. But work fills everything in our life, okay? Don't get me wrong. And you know that there is an old stereotype. Men always can define other men when they ask, what do you do? No, females are more open-minded. They have a different conception, different way. I'm generalizing now. And this is, I know this is a stereotype, but it's a positive one. And the female conversation they will take care of more holistic things that we don't. We say, okay, what do you do? We're aiming, no? Let's try to move from that place because it's quite limited. So now there are a lot of mindfulness, a lot of things that are coming to the mainstream that we never believed that was going to come to the mainstream. And I will share one anecdote with you. I'm working with a company, top high-end technical products. One of the things that HR is offering only for top leaders is because they go to retreats and they go to training, I mean, the typical things in organization. The most popular now is a retreat that they do in the middle of nowhere, 3 days, without talking, and it's led by a monk, a Buddhist monk. When I heard about this, Thomas, I say, oh my God, things are changing. I'm talking about a company that the product is about, everything is about now. And they are very, very, all engineers. And that is what the company say, this is what you need. Let's start bringing together all this part that we have, that in a very wrong way, we were separating and putting in different buckets. Let's start putting all them on the same bucket. And the bucket is ourselves.
Well, thank you for your time today and your contribution in general. I kind of feel like it's been a really interesting conversation. Carlos, thank you for being a great guest.
Come on, thanks for the invitation.